Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our virtual presentation. This event is part of the Frank Islam Athenaeum Symposia series. I'm Dr. Fiona Glade, Dean of Communication Studies, English Language for Academic Purposes, and Linguistics. On behalf of Germantown Campus Vice President and Provost, Margaret Latimer, and as the curator for the Athenaeum series, I'm honored to welcome you all today. And we gratefully acknowledge the native peoples on whose ancestral homelands Montgomery College sits, as well as the diverse and vibrant native communities who make their home here in Montgomery County today. This Distinguished Speakers series is made possible through a most generous gift from philanthropist and civic leader, Mr. Frank Islam. A powerful philosophy created by Mr. Islam drives the symposia. If you conceive it, he says, you believe it, you can achieve it. You can find more information about our program and view recordings of previous speakers by visiting the Montgomery College Athenaeum website. Our presentation today is being recorded and will be available on the website soon. This year, our speakers have explored the very timely theme of civil rights, human rights, and social responsibility. Today's presentation asks us to look at racial injustice and domestic violence and at combating harmful stereotypes of Asian and Asian American women. Before we go on, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the work of a few great Montgomery College folks who've contributed to making this event happen. Ms. Kaylin Nguyen, who coordinates the admin, our technology experts, Mr. Stan Jones and Mr. Arkar Kyo-Win, and our Athenaeum Fellows from Germantown campus, Professor Katima Lee and Professor Amanda Miller. And now I pass the mic to Professor Amanda Miller, who will offer our introduction to our distinguished guest, Misoo Bang.
Thank you, Dr. Glade. Today, we are very fortunate to have Misoo Bang here with us. She will deliver a presentation titled, The Journey of the Giantess. Through the journey of the giantess, Misoo Bang will walk us through her transformation from victim to a powerful creator who talks about racial injustice and domestic violence. Ms. Bang will address the fetishization of Asian women in America, the stereotype of cultural passivity, and her response to patriarchy and male dominance. In their most powerful forms, the women in this artist's Giantess series celebrate female fortitude, encouraging viewers to join the movement. Misoo Bang was born in the Bronx in 1980, moved back to her parents' homeland of South Korea 1 year later, then returned to the US at 18 to use painting as her mode of emotional communication and storytelling. She holds a Master of Fine Arts in Painting and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Painting from Florida Atlantic University. Her honors include Emerging Artists of New England in 2019 and Vermont Artist to Watch in 2020. Her exhibition venues include the Boca Raton Museum of Art, Bailey Contemporary Arts, Florida Atlantic University, Durham Arts Council, the Flemings Museum of Art at University of Vermont, Girls Club of Fort Lauderdale, Champlain College, and the Steinhardt Museum of Natural History in Tel Aviv. Fellow members of the Montgomery College community, it is my pleasure to welcome Misoo Bang.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Misoo. I am a visual artist. Very happy to be here. I will start my sharing my screens. 1 second, and we can start talking about it. All right. I work with the female survivors of domestic violence and Asian women who living in Western world and who has hurt inside after seeing the images of themselves dehumanized and fetishized by our Western culture. I also work with the female survivors of domestic violence and celebrate the power of a female during the work. A lot of my models are local women where I am living. And furthermore, if I'm having art show in other town, I try to include local women in that part of the town in the series. I did not start with the giantesses and the giant Asian girls, how women are portrayed very powerful and strong at the beginning. My 20 years ago, my work looked very different than what it looked like right now. And then I think it is very important to go through that journey with me, that I talk about the journey and how I became the artist who I am right now. So we are, let's see, we are traveling time back to about 20 years ago when I first came to America. And that is when I started first painting. I was 17 years old and I came here because my father passed away and my mom was living here. So I came here in order to live with my mother that I did not really know very much. I was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the same time. And moving to America, even though I was born here, I did not speak the language. And moving here after, just after my father died and that I did not speak language was a really big deal for me. It was a big life change at the time. And when I was in high school in America, I start understanding that there is no people, no friends to talk to for me. So I start making art instead of communicating with the languages, written languages and spoken languages, because the art is a universal language. So at the time, a lot of my art, my paintings are emotional self-portraits. I was not sure to put my self-portrait, my physical face in the painting. I feel naked when I do that and hanging in the public. So I start using the girl image that I found in a magazine and I start putting herself in a dark environment when she is a little alone, she is confused. And this one is called the Rainbow. And because I felt like I was entrapped in my environment many times, I use a symbol of a bird cages to talk about entrapment. I talked about the willingness of get out of the space that I could not. This girl is wearing a fake wings, but she cannot fly with them. So she is one of the bird, like the bird inside the bird cages. And this one is called Rainbow because she sees a rainbow out of the window that the viewers cannot see. The room is reflected with a rainbow color. And it's just a longing and desire for myself to get out of that space. A lot of my paintings are my self-portraits. This one is called The Mirror. It is about how I came to America and I have this banquet, like feast in front of me, which I am not sure if I can touch them. I was dressed in a fancy Western dress. I was not sure if I belong inside. I give myself a big smile because I was telling myself I should be happy to be here in America, the land of opportunity. But I wasn't sure if I am here and if I am welcome. So a lot of my early works really represents the confusion of this teenage girl who was going through and during when I was in my early 20s. This one I made this based on Alice in Wonderland series. It's called the Midnight Tea Party. It's 44 inches and 60 inches tall. It's a big painting. It's tall as my height. The girl inside is Alice when she got very small, and that's how I felt. I felt very small in this humongous world of America. Because for me, living in America is like a wonderland. Everything was mystery. Did not understand what people were saying. I remember one day I was sitting in the classroom and my teacher wrote on a blackboard, and then she used cursive that I could not read. So I just copied and drew. I remember drawing her writing on my notebook and bringing back home, ask my mom, what is that? And she said, I cannot read this. So that's kind of the struggle that I was going through. My diabetes was getting really bad because I did not have health insurance at the time. Buying insulin and diabetic supplies was very big pressure for my mother as a single mother. And she was working all the time. I did not have any friends to talk to. At the time in late 1990s and early 2000s, international phone calls were extremely expensive, so I could not call my friends. The only way to communicate with them was writing a letter, and it takes about 2 weeks to get there, and I need to wait another 2 weeks to get the reply if they write right away. So it kind of shows like the loneliness of this girl. We are moving to a second stage of my work. I call this postpartum series, and we are jumping maybe about 10 years from the Vulnerable Girls series. And this is when I was pregnant, and this is the first drawing that I made. This one is called Twinkle Twinkle. I depicted myself with this big woman with pregnant belly. I have my daughter in the middle center. I have two other children that I lost during the pregnancy. This woman has no arms. If you look at it, the arms of this person is the bunny man's arms, and the bunny man is another creature that I created at this time. And when I was pregnant and when I become a new mother, I start having this fear of what if my child get taken away? What if she will get kidnapped? What if she get raped? What if something happens to her? What if I am not there to protect her? So I was experiencing this enormous fear every day from the pregnancy until up to maybe my daughter was about 7-8 years old. I use a lot of symbols. There is a cow here representing my breast milk, and then there's a little hole with an eye and a tongue that is stealing the breast milk. And I have nose bleeding, not understanding the shock of what is happening. This one is another painting that I made right after I gave birth to my daughter. This one is called The Missing, and it is based on a fairy tale, The Red Riding Hood. And I drew myself wearing my red jacket. And instead of holding a basket filled with wine and bread, I am holding a car seat. And my daughter is inside the car seat. And I am walking through this mysterious and dark woods, not understanding, not knowing where am I taking my daughter into, and what kind of danger I might face. When I became a mother, newborn mom, like a lot of mom understands, there was no time for me to paint. It was very challenging to grab paintings and set it up, doing sketches, plan it ahead. So I start making drawings that does not take that much time. My daughter was crying and she needs me. So something that I can make in about 10, 15 minutes. And if my newborn child needs me, I can just run to her. So I start using oil pastel and watercolor color pencils, like children's drawing medium. And I start making this very quick drawings, and without me understanding or without me planning, I created this guy named Bunny, the Bunny Man. I named him the Bunny Man, and then he is a person who is wearing this very colorful bunny mask, and he has a huge grind on his face with a very sharp teeth, and he's a perpetrator. He is a kidnapper. He's danger to all these children in the world. During this time, when I was not planning and making hundreds of these little drawings, I found myself something that was hiding deep inside came out. I created a bunch of monsters that all have some kind of phallic symbols to it. And they are very colorful. They all have a big smile on them. This is when my daughter started walking, and again, in a very colorful environment, this bunny man is alluring children to his playfulness and waiting for her to reach him. And at least in this drawing, I made him armless and feetless so he cannot reach her. And she's approaching him and asking him to play with her. This is another drawing that I did at that time. It's a little Red Riding Hood again. And this is my daughter, and she sees in one eye a wolf devouring a little child, and she sees in her other eye that the wolf sees her hiding in the dark closet and walking towards her. So I was going through this phase of the fear of my daughter's taken away, and then this fear is so extreme, I could not function very well. I would keep making and describing it in my drawings. And it made me question myself, why am I so afraid of this possible happen? And there's this old guy taking two children away from me, and I am just a mere cow hiding behind the tree without not able to do anything but cry. I started collecting porcelain dolls at some point. I felt sorry for them, that very old porcelain dolls in a garage sale or flea market. They were once probably loved, and now they are abandoned. I started buying them. So I had a studio filled with them, like 40, 50 of porcelain dolls. And the studio started becoming creepier and creepier. And instead of taking care of them, I started making drawings of them in a very disturbing images. I stripped them. I put them in a position where when they're getting raped, I twisted their knuckles, and without understanding, I was keep making these drawings, and I find myself just without planning, keep creating the very disturbing images of little girls getting raped. And that really made me question, why am I doing this? What is going on? What's in my head? This is another part of the porcelain doll series. This girl in the middle is part of the porcelain doll She is sitting on the couch here with the lines of dolls, and she is a part of the collection. The title of this piece is called The Gentleman's Collection. And if you see behind the screen, on the right side of the painting, there's a little hole, and there is a guy hiding behind the screen. The reflection is reflecting on the window, and he's peeking through the hole and watching the girls in the room. Again, there is a bird cage as a symbol of entrapment. She has a little rusty horse tricycle, but she can't really go anywhere with this tricycle. And while I was making this for years and years, I finally understood that I am making this image because of my repressed memory that I had. I was raped by one of my family member for about 3-4 years when I was 10 to like 13, 14 years old. And he was living with me, and he was somebody that I should trust. And understanding that point that what happened to me as a child affected that how I was thinking, and the work that I was making was a big shock, because I never really had a courage to connect those incidents, the history, with what I was making. I never had a courage to understanding why am I suicidal? Why was I hurting myself? Why was I always feel entrapped? And that was a big turning point in my artist career, to understand that it was like a lost piece of puzzle that it was missing the whole time. And when I figured out that that memory was affecting my life the whole way, I could see the big picture of what I was doing, why I was so scared, why I was making these very disturbing images of dolls. And that makes me upset. That made me upset, and I start cutting these drawings and making collages with them and splashing them in very violent ways. And while I was making this work, now I understood why I was making this work. I could not go anymore. It was very challenging for me to make these images, because now I was seeing myself as one of these dolls. So that's when I start. Okay, so this is the last painting of the narrative series before I went abstract. This one is called Monster and Me. And this is the first time I actually depicted my perpetrator in my work. And I depicted him without a face. He is this monster. His germs and fats are floating down, and then I am trapped in this room, in this dark room with this monster, and I am very weak, have no will. I understand there's no help. So that was the state that I was going at the time, that dark, muddy, dirty water place. And because I am also very scared of drowning, I'm scared of water. It really showed in the painting, it shows the fear of what I was going through at the time. And because this making narrative drawings and figurative drawings were so challenging, I start making abstract art. I use the symbols of hair, childless hair, as that represents child victim, and I use the large ink blobs that symbolizes the perpetrator. So detail of the painting, in my beginning of the abstract work, the hair that I drew are very delicate, and they are representing a child victim's hair. They are helpless, especially the domestic violence, child from the domestic violence when they are getting abused by her or their family member. It really has no choice. They really don't have a choice. There is no place to go, no place to help, ask for help. So it really shows the psychology of a child victim that is completely overpowered by a perpetrator. This is the finished piece. This one, I titled it Over My Silent Body. And it is 60 inches tall and 116 inches wide. I made this painting large because I needed space to splash this ink wide, and it is also representing a space that two people struggles on. So it is almost like a bed size, and I displayed it horizontally. This is another one. It's called Ripped Apart. Another example of how overpowered this child victim is by this dark perpetrator. I used the color in this painting. This is a detailed view. The color red and pink here is representing the body fluid from the child victim. And I also use acrylic medium on top of it, as if the perpetrator ejaculated on the painting. Another detail of Ripped Apart. And I understood when I first made this painting, it always started with ink mark first, and then I drew hair underneath it, because drawing this hair takes enormous time, and then it was easier for me to put the ink first and then draw hair where I think it belongs, where I think it works well. And I understood that that's not the order what happened. I understood that I was doing a reverse order. So at this point, I start making the hair drawing first. But as you can see, the hair is getting a little bit different. The hair is getting darker and thicker, and it becomes a mother's hair instead of child victim's hair. And I probably drew this hair for about 300 plus hours. And while I am drawing this hair, I am on the floor, kneeling, and sometimes just lying, and everything hurts. When you are lying down and kneeling like this for 15 minutes, your wrists start hurting, your knees start hurting, you start getting headache. And doing that for 300 hours, it was very challenging, but it was also very important for me. That physical labor was important to me, because I drew the mother's hair and the child's hair underneath it. And I realized the more physical labor that I do, the more physically I put more of a mother's hair on it. I will make this drawing stronger, because I start inserting mother's hair as a protector of this child victim. And I pour ink on top of it. And that was a very challenging step for me, because I made this drawing for 300 hours. And then I understand when I pour ink, I will ruin the whole thing. So I was struggling to, maybe I should put a clear paper on top of it and then put the ink on it. That way I can still save the hair drawing. And then I again understood that that is not the point. The point is about ruining something precious. So I pour the ink, and this is me thinking, oh no, I ruined it. I ruined my 300-hour drawing. And then my MFA show was like coming up in about a week, and I was panicking. So I kneel down again and I start scrubbing this ink. And I was actually trying my best to remove the ink. I used my nails, I used the scrub, I used the water, and I realized that I was physically fighting the perpetrator on my canvas. And slowly I can see the mother's hair was still underneath it. It was still protecting the child's hair. You can see the mother's dark hair and the child's delicate, lighter hair that is covered by a perpetrator's dark ink. So this one, I titled it, I Am the Barrier, because I was in here as a mother and I was there to protect my child. I did a lot of experiments with these ink pieces. I burned papers, I layered them. The ink that I use is India ink or sometimes Sumi ink, and they have so much value inside. When you mix it with the water, they move until it is completely dried, and sometimes it takes like 3 days, 4 days, and I can just watch the ink moving for hours. And they look like they have its own mind. I do not have a lot of control over this ink. Very unlikely I have a total control of drawing hairs, because that represents myself and my daughter. And the ink is representing the perpetrator, that I just let it happen, and it makes its own form. This is the one piece that I actually drew myself and my daughter's figure in the abstract work. This one is called Cocoon, and it is 8 feet tall and 15 feet wide. And it shows me and my daughter entangled inside this ink and hair mess. After a while, I start showing my work vertically instead of horizontally, because for me, vertical means hair, and I was no longer in the perpetrator's territory anymore. My hair was no longer helpless victim, but a powerful mother. And this time I put the tape on the paper first, and I pour ink all over, and I rip the tape off to remove the perpetrator out of the paper. And this is how it is showing. This one is called Bartholomew. It is 5 feet wide and 15 feet tall. I always felt entrapped when I was making work. So it was just keep getting bigger and bigger. I start with 8 feet wide, and then now it turned to 15 feet tall. And I feel satisfied while I was showing this work that I started as a child victim. I became a mother as a protector. And now I am a creator who make this painting, inviting the perpetrator to my territory, where before I was in his territory and completely overpowered by him. I feel also satisfied dragging this paper and displaying out in the public. And even though it does not have a face or name to it, I am displaying who this is, what it did to me, to the public. And this is a series of the vertical pieces. The reason how it is coming down onto viewers' space is one, because it's very tall and not many gallery has bigger than 15 feet high ceiling. But also this one really invites viewers into the space that what was happening. This was one of when I was in one of the artist residency, and this is kind of how it starts when I poured ink all over the Yubo paper. And this is me in the middle, if you can see, very dark. I wanted to show the scale of the painting. This one is actually 5 feet wide and 30 feet tall. So like, as you can see, the hair is getting angrier now. I am getting more powerful. And I work them. I include the colors. The color for me is very important in my work. I do not use color unless it's very necessary. So this one, again, I have a color of body fluid inside. And this is the installation part with my daughter when she was visiting me installing. I start cutting this paper up because I felt still very entrapped making these drawings in a rectangular shape. One day I went to a bar and then karaoke bar, and I was singing and then got drunk, came back to my studio, and I saw the large, tall, 30 feet tall drawings looking at me. And I got so upset. I grabbed scissors and start cutting them and warping them and crushing them, and it satisfied me. So I install, like on the left side, this is the installation of the warp pieces. And this is the last piece of ink piece. It is called Chrysanthemum. In Korea, we use chrysanthemum in funerals. It's about like sending people away. And chrysanthemum also has a meaning of blooming later. Chrysanthemum and mums blooms after the first snow, after the cold weather. So for me, inserting chrysanthemum was important because it really tells the story of how I went through difficult times, and then I felt like my art bloomed and I was ready to send it away, that I will never recover from that memory. It changed myself and my life ever since it first happened. And it happens, and it is same with a lot of female domestic violence survivors. But I found through my art, I feel like I found the peace between what happened, my memory and myself, and I gained power through it. After a while, I start making these drawings of what I call giant Asian girls. And this one, it starts as small pieces. This one is 24 inches wide and 18 inches tall. When I came to America, I had this feeling of that alienated feeling. When I grew up in Korea, I read Western fairy tales like Christian Andersen and Grimm's brothers. They were all over our culture. And we're very familiar with the Snow White stories, Cinderella stories. And when I first came here, I understood that oh, these female characters, these main characters, I will never be the main character in this world, in this country. And that really upset me, even though that was not what I felt when I was growing up in Korea. I was putting myself into these main characters' shoes and seeing myself and being hopeful about it. And when I came here, Asian woman was, I think, very differently, was had this stereo racial type of how Asian women are behaving and how we should behave. And I felt like I wasn't never, or Asian women are never a main character in this country. So I start changing Disney princesses with the with Asian women. This one is from Sleeping Beauty. This one again is from Alice in Wonderland. Asian women in America are treated differently. Like this musical, Miss Saigon, and previously the Madame Butterfly opera. That understanding the stereotype of Asian women in America is pretty shocking, that we are seeing as these weak, small creatures, but also faithful and hardworking woman, but she will sacrifice herself for her love. We are also seen as obedient people, submissive. And in this musicals and opera, the white male are attracted to this Asian woman, and the white male in these stories are almost superheroes. They are there to rescue them. They have resources. They have money. They also portrayed very muscular, strong. They're there to protect this Asian woman, where Asian women are portrayed as prostitute, exotic, but faithful, the desirable sex partner. These two stories, Miss Saigon and Madame Butterfly, they both ended with Miss Saigon's suicide by sacrificing herself and then giving her son to this American soldier. And then Madame Butterfly also tried to suicide and kill herself. So when I was watching this and then understanding people in this musical, white people in the musical, another audience were like crying about the musical and like how sad it is, how it is sad that she's sacrificing herself, how beautiful the story is. It really made me question, like, it's not a beautiful story. It is awful and pervasive story of Asian women. How Asian women are portrayed in these stories are pretty much disgusting. And I went back to my giant Asian girls and I understood all my giant Asian girls have this pose of submissive or not confronting. They are kind of looking down. They are avoiding the eye contact. Again, they have a small body type and they are not sure what they are thinking. So I start making the giant Asian girls and researching some example of how female bodies were portrayed in Western culture. This one is a painting by Alexander Kabadel, The Birth of Venus, where the female body is weightless and she is lighter than water. She's floating on top of the wave and she's almost like a sea foam. Her body is twisted, almost look like she has no bone. And her gaze, it's almost like she is waiting to be raped. And like how the Western culture make the woman, idealized woman, very delicate and seductive and weak, was just in the history over and over again. This one is Joan Everett Millais' Ophelia, again idealizing self-sacrificial woman when Ophelia suicide. She's in the water, she is weightless, she is beautiful in the water, but she is actually useless being in the water. Asian women here too, in the TV media, are very objectified and sexualized. We have pale skin color, pale enough to please white men. They always compliment of our silky hair, how young we look, but also sexy and sexual being to fulfill white men's wildest sex dream. Compared to that, the males in the portraits are depicted very differently. The left one is David Napoleon. The right one is John Singer Sargent, Theodore Roosevelt. They have a power to these poses. They are confronting the viewers. They are standing straight. They're owning the environment where they are. There is intelligence in the poses, in their gaze. So I start, instead of using this Asian woman who look like weak and have no willing of their own, I started using myself as a model, because it was not easy to find a nice woman images online or in a magazine that is published. So I start having these poses and taking pictures of myself. So that my giant Asian girls start having more confronting gaze. It has confident body languages. This one I actually got the pose from the Napoleon portrait that we just saw. They are they have the background of collages of, this one is Baroque and Gothic buildings. I used the highest highlight of Western culture in the background. So under her feet, there are very small, tiny creatures of like religious leaders and soldiers, beautiful golden buildings, and she is bigger than all this Western culture. This is kind of how I make the portrait. I take a picture of myself and do a little sketch, and first to layer of paint. And this one, I actually put Paul Bunyan under my feet. Paul Bunyan is the giant American folktale hero. And she's not trying to stepping on Paul Bunyan. She's just understanding, oh, you're there. You're very small. And put all these soldiers underneath her, the war scenes underneath her. And while I'm making these collages, it's quite fun to find old books of Renaissance, American history, and then I cut them very small and then put them around and I glue them. And there is the final piece of the painting. I also use children's book background. Some people ask, what's the meaning of the children's book? And it is because I grew up in Korea listening to these fairy tales, understanding that I will not gonna be the main character, but in my work, I am the main character of this world. I am the most powerful being too. The children's book in my work is symbolizing a chaotic world, almost like children's tantrum. After a while, I start showing my work, and then I got people contacting me that they want to be part of the Giant Asian Girl series. So I start painting other women. I was so happy that I didn't have to use my self-portrait all the time, that the other women feel the same, they understand, they went through the same thing. It's an awful thing, but they are ready to represent it as this big, powerful being, as a Giant Asian Girl. They are about life size scale. They are all kind of sitting down. So if they are standing up, they are a little bigger than actual human. I do want to share some stories of each model. This is Wei Wei, and when I make this series, I ask them, what do you want to say to the public? And they send me sometimes paragraph of what they want to say. This one is Giant Asian Girl, Wei Wei, and she says, as an Asian woman, I am not allowed to be inquisitive or assertive. I am supposed to be demure and compliant, not gregarious and tenacious. My mother told me that I can achieve anything that I want to, despite my gender and despite my skin color, despite what white men, all men think of me. I can overcome those stereotypes. This one is the Giant Asian Girl, Mina. She's an Indian descendant, and she says, I am kind, I am empathetic, I am friendly, I am beautiful and powerful. I wanted to participate because maybe when someone looks at this painting of me, they can see what I see in me. After a while, I expand the Giant Asian Girl series, the topic to the domestic violence victims, because that was how I found my strength when I was going through the abstract pieces. And I understood that it is not just my story, but all of our story, that a lot of women go through what I went through. So the Giantess series is a series that celebrates the survivors of domestic violence victims' powers. This one is Emily. And for me, the courage of these women coming to me and sharing their story is very inspiring and incredible, because with my work, they are willing to show their face with their name out in the world, telling us that I have been through this. I've been raped, or I have been domestic violence for a very long time. I was weak, but now not now I am this powerful. This one is the Giantess, Carmen, and I would love to share what she sent to me. She says, love is what they call it. All explained to me that their violation were an act of love. I'm sorry you think that, but I loved you. I didn't rape you, I loved you. Women are viewed and analyzed. Women are manhandled by naughty boys in museums who know that we are already indicated with a sign, please do not touch. Do not touch, please. The image of a woman who looks like me is not painted for you to look at. She is not painted for you to enjoy her. The women in these paintings and all the women not painted are not objects for handling. There's more to these women than their faces, their bodies, their relation to you, or their utility for others. There's more to these women, these people, or these things on display than one can see. You may look, you might see. Do not touch, please. The last Giantess series that I'm going to share is the Giantess Carmen. The Giantess Carol. She says, trauma is a wily thing. As a woman in my 50s, it has taken me on a wild ride through decades of my life. Some decades I no longer remember. Some I wish I didn't remember. And some decades where survival was just about white knuckling it, day by day. Growing up a victim of sexual abuse under my father's unyielding physical and emotional control, I never had a chance to see who I was without trauma. Now I began to tear down walls and find my voice, learning to not betray myself and speak my truth. And now I have a giantess looking right back at me, one who looks just like me. So this is the Giantess series that I am creating to celebrate the power of a woman. This one is actually my current series. This one is called Lotus Flower, because Lotus Flower has a significant meaning in Asian culture. Lotus flower blooms from a muddy water, dirty, dark water, and blooms beautifully. And that's what I thought about this, how we suffered as a female. And then like found our power back and bloom beautifully. It is inspired by the idea of bodhisattvas in Buddhism, where the bodhisattvas are the beings who refuse to be a Buddha and willing to stay in this chaotic human world to lead other people. And I made this into a mandala shape that we understand that there are suffering in the world. And it's more about forgiving. It's about finding a peace and power within ourselves. And this was my last screen, and I am going to stop sharing. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening. And then I will hand this mic back to Fiona, and you can ask her any questions.
Thank you very much, Misoo. This was a phenomenal presentation. The chat that the panelists could see was lighting up. I can see that the audience members were really feeling a connection with you. This was a powerful testament to women's strength, to your own brilliance and hard work. And we really appreciate your sharing this and contributing to our series today. I want to thank our amazing speaker, Misoo Bang, once more for a truly powerful and moving presentation. Thank you very much for everything that you've done to help us understand your perspective and understand how you work.
Mhm.
I want to say thank you once again to our provost and mentor, Margaret Latimer at Germantown campus, to our generous donor, Mr. Frank Islam, to everybody who helped make this event possible today, including all of you, our participants who came, listened, shared your questions. So with this, we close the Athenaeum series for this academic year. This Misoo's talk will be posted on the Athenaeum webpage in a couple of weeks. It's been recorded today for anybody who would like to revisit. And we look forward to seeing you here again virtually when we come back for the new school year in the fall. We will begin the fall Athenaeum series with a talk from Representative Jamie Raskin. So have a wonderful summer, and thanks again to Ms. Bang. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.